بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. We left off on chapter number 17 باب فضل الصلاة على الجنازة واتباعها, the superiority of the funeral prayer and of following the funeral procession. The superiority, the virtue, the excellence, the reward of following the janazah and praying over the janazah and following the janazah. For hypothetical reasons, you want to pray over it first, then they'll proceed to the burial grounds. So this means another ruling from the ahkam, the rulings, another selection of etiquette, another aspect of the manners and the do's and the don'ts of the janazah is to pray over the janazah, to physically make the salat, not just dua, but to be among those who pray over the janazah, and to be from among those who follow the procession of the janazah. Of course, you praying over the deceased Muslim is a virtue for the deceased Muslim, is a benefit for the deceased Muslim. But the beauty of Islam is that whenever you do a good deed, any act of submission to Allah and His Messenger which benefits someone else is always a double-edged sword. You obey the Muslim ruler and the ma'ruf, you get the reward. And you also give him his haqq. A woman obeys her husband, she gets the reward from Allah, just like she gives her husband his haqq. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ says, وَإِنَّكَ لَن تُنْفِقَ نَفَقَةً تَبْتَغِي بِهَا وَجْهَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا أُجِرْتَ عَلَيْهَا. He says, there isn't anything that you can spend, any nafaqah that you can spend in which you seek the face of Allah, except that you will get a reward. حَتَّى مَا تَجْعَلْ فِي مِرَأَتِكَ. Even the morsels of food that you place in your wife's mouth. He said to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So therefore, whenever you do something for someone in Islam with the proper intention, you'll be spiritually rewarded as well. So the janazah, praying over the janazah, following the janazah, making dua for the dead Muslim is a benefit, is a faidah for the dead Muslim. And it's also a means of you increasing your spirituality and you getting closer to Allah, the Mighty and the Most High. Khairan, inshaAllah. The author, he says, Hadith Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من شهد الجنازة حتى يصلي عليها فله قيراط ومن شهد حتى تدفن كان له قيراطان قيل وما القيراطان قال مثل الجبلين العظيمين. حديث أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه وعائشة رضي الله عنها حدث ابن عمر أن أبا هريرة رضي الله عنه كان يقول من تبع جنازة فله قيراط فقال أكثر أبو هريرة علينا فصدقت يعني عائشة أبا هريرة وقالت سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول وقال ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما لقد فرطنا في قراريط كثيرة. First narration is reported by Abu Hurairah in his hadith 551. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever attends a funeral procession till he offers the funeral prayer for it will get a reward equal to 1 qirat. And whoever accompanies it till burial will get a reward equal to 2 qirat. It was asked, what are 2 qirat? He replied, like 2 huge mountains. Hadith 552 is reported by, narrated Nafi'. Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma was told that Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu said, whoever accompanies a funeral procession will have a reward equal to 1 qirat. Ibn Umar said, Abu Hurairah talks of an enormous reward. Aisha radiyallahu anha attested to Abu Hurairah's narration and said, I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying like that. Ibn Umar said, indeed we have lost numerous qirat. Indeed we have lost numerous qirat. So these 2 authentic narrations, both in Bukhari and Muslim, show us exactly what the chapter head said, what the chapter heading said, is that praying over the janazah, following the janazah, witnessing the janazah, attending the janazah is a virtue. It's hasana. And it is a means of great virtue. So much so that the hadith says qirat, a qirat. And he was asked about what are the qirat, what are the 2, مثل الجبلين العظيمين, like 2 huge heaps equally yani the size of a mountain. Two mountains, two great mountains of hasanat. So the hadith is simple and the hadith is clear and is plain of the virtue of doing this. Of the virtue of doing this. From the issues that we have with these two hadiths is the word qirat. What's meant by that word qirat? And what is the relation to qirat and what people use today with regards to carats? 12 carats, 16 carats, 21 carats, 24 carats. Is there a relation to that with regards to the purity of the gold, the alloy, how much pure gold is in it, and what is the concept of a carat, and what makes some gold more expensive than others, and being in levels of carats? What's meant by that? Carat and a qirat. That's a bahth in itself, the linguistic meaning of the word qirat. Also, we have the concept of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma looking at what Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said as if it was a bit too much or something that needed to be verified, or yani there's such a huge, tremendous reward just for something so simple and small. And Aisha radiallahu anha corroborated Abu Hurairah's report. And this is one of the foundations of the concept of ilm al-hadith. Ilm al-hadith and naqtul matan, criticizing the text of the narration and not accepting it because of something which seems to be problematic, wa alaikum salam, in the actual text, and not just criticizing the isnad. Nawawi rahimahullah says in Al-Minhaj, قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من شهد الجنازة حتى يصلي عليها فله قيراط ومن شهدها حتى تدفن فيه الحث على الصلاة على الجنازة واتباعها ومصاحبتها حتى تدفن. Like we previously explained, the virtue of doing so. قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من شهد حتى تدفن فله قيراطان معناه بالأول فيحصل بالصلاة قيراط وبالاتباع مع حضور الدفن قيراط آخر فيكون الجميع قيراطين. تنبيه: رواية البخاري في أول الصحيح في كتاب الإيمان من شهد جنازة وكان معها حتى يصلي عليها ويفرغ من دفنها رجع من الأجر بقيراطينها. فهذا صريح في أن المجموع بالصلاة والاتباع وحضور الدفن قيراطان، وقد سبق بيان هذه المسألة ونظائرها إلى آخره. قال رحمه الله تعالى: وقال بعض أصحابنا يحصل القيراط الثاني إذا ستر الميت في القبر باللبن وإن لم يلقى عليه التراب والصواب الأول. طيب, he speaks on some issues regarding when do you actually get the rewards. Praying over the janazah is one thing, and following it is another thing. And the deceased Muslim being placed into the ground, being covered up with dirt. When do you get the second qirat? When does it take place? He explains some of those issues, which we won't mention right now. We won't translate right now. Wallahu ta'ala alam. طيب, moving forward. We also have the concept of those who have dogs. Having a dog as a pet. And the rule on having a dog as a pet, وَمَنْ اقْتَنَى كَلْبًا, whoever takes a dog, has a dog in his or her possession, and it isn't a dog of those excluded classes for hunting, for security, for sheep. Naam? The dogs that are trained, that are allowed, a Muslim is allowed to have, then he will نَقَصَ مِنْ أَجْرِهِ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ قِيرَاط. Every day he will lose a qirat. Is it the same amount? Or is it just meaning a portion of one's hasanat? Because it's the same word used in that hadith, the hadith of Ibn Umar and Sahih Muslim. Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he explains that as well. Khairan inshaAllah ta'ala. Let's move forward. First hadith, hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, shows us that all of the Sahaba, or every single companion, didn't know every single thing that the Prophet ﷺ said. And they weren't all masters or those who had understood and encompassed everything of the Arabic language and of the Prophet ﷺ's rich vocabulary. Even though they were Arab Fusaha, they were Fasih. But the Prophet ﷺ's Fasaha was on a higher level. Alright, it was higher on high. It was above high. So they asked, وَمَا الْقِيرَاطَانِ, what are they? What is a qirat? What's meant by that word? whether they knew what it meant linguistically and they asked about its Islamic meaning, or whether they didn't understand its linguistical nor Islamic what? Meaning. Everyone clear on this? Khairan inshaAllah ta'ala. And it shows us that some of the Sahaba had more knowledge and more fiqh than what? Than others. And it also goes to show us in Hadith 552 is that the companions, they differed. And everything wasn't understood and known in every single situation to every single Sahabi. And those who heard from the Messenger of Allah something, they reported it and they related it. And others didn't hear. Others didn't, they weren't there, they didn't witness it, didn't memorize it. And it does not make any type of attack or slander of those companions who reported what they heard and what they saw. And it's a tremendous principle in hadith and in fiqh. A tremendous principle in hadith and fiqh. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and other scholars, they have explained that those who say that they'll only take from one scholar, they only take from one of the four imams, only from one imam of a madhab, is like someone who says, I only take a narration from Ibn Umar and not those of Aisha. I only take Abu Hurairah's hadiths, but not Anas's hadiths. He says it's a similar disposition, similar attitude. How can you just take the good of one person and there are others who got it as well? So Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala or Imam Ahmed or any alim, do you witness and do you testify that he had everything, alaykum salam, and he knew everything and he obtained everything and nothing was missing from his knowledge? How it was. He was still not from the deen of Islam. It's not from the deen of Islam. And we can clearly see that all the Sahaba were not on the same level of memorization, of understanding, and there are certain things that they had, and there's certain levels of patience, there's certain levels of inkar. This one said that's not true. No, it is true. They weren't all on one thing all of the time. Everyone understands? That's the point we're trying to get to. Khairan inshallah. Next question. Or next chapter says, Babu fi man yuthna alayhi khayrun aw sharrun min al-mawta. حديث أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال مروا بجنازة فأثنوا عليها خيرا فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وجبت ثم مروا بأخرى فأثنوا عليها شرا فقال وجبت فقال عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه ما وجبت قال هذا أثنيتم عليه خيرا فوجبت له الجنة وهذا أثنيتم عليه شرا فوجبت له النار أنتم شهداء الله في الأرض. تفضل for sure. F1. The next chapter says, the deceased who is praised by the people or who is spoken badly by the people. This is another ruling of the janazah, another ruling and more etiquette, and that is speaking well and speaking ill of the deceased. And what is the result when you speak good of someone who is deceased, or if you speak negative of someone who is deceased? What takes place? What happens? Is it even permissible to say something about someone who is deceased? That's first and foremost. And secondly, when a Muslim or when the Muslims do speak well or ill of someone, what does that mean and what does that necessitate? What does that mean and what does that necessitate? Last but not least is what's meant by this is that if you say something good of a Muslim, then he will go to paradise. And if you say bad or something ill of a Muslim, that they will go to the fire of hell. What's meant by that? So we have hadith number 553 is reported by Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. A funeral procession passed and the people praised the deceased. The Prophet ﷺ says it has been affirmed to him. Then another funeral procession passed and the people spoke badly of the deceased. The Prophet ﷺ said it has been affirmed to him. Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu asked Allah's Messenger ﷺ, what has been affirmed? He replied, you have praised this one, so paradise has been affirmed to him. And you have dispraised of the other, so hell has been affirmed to him. You people are Allah's witnesses on earth. You people are Allah's witnesses on earth. Khairan inshallah, what does this hadith mean? What does this mean? That we have the ability to control who goes to paradise and goes to the hellfire with our tongues? What is the ruling on cursing the dead and speaking ill of the dead and negatively of the dead? What is the ruling on praising the dead? Is that min al-na'i al-manhi anhu? Is that the call of Jahiliyyah when someone dies, you start mentioning their virtues like a eulogy? What is meant by this issue? Very important for us to understand this and to pay attention well. Moving forward. Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala in Sharh Sahih Muslim, he says regarding these hadiths, قال قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. طيب, move forward, next chapter. معنى الحديث أن الموت قسمان مستريح ومستراح منه ونصب الدنيا تبعها. وأما استراحة العباد من الفاجر معناه اندفاع أذاه عنهم، وأذاه يكون من وجوه، منها ظلمه لهم ومنها ارتكابه للمنكرات، فإن أنكروها قاسوا مشقة من ذلك، وربما نالهم ضرره وإن سكتوا عنه أثموا. واستراحتها تمنع القطر أو تمنع القطر بمصيبته، قاله الداودي. وقال الباجي لأنه يغصبها ويمنعها حقها من الشرب وغيره. خيرا إن شاء الله تعالى. We have the concept of these hadiths. خيرا. He says here, and before we jump into the next chapter which I just read, he says في هذا الحديث استحباب توكيد الكلام المهتم بتكراره ليحفظ وليكون أبلغ. وما معناه ففيه قولان للعلماء، أحدهما أن هذا الثناء بالخير لمن أثنى عليه أهل الفضل فكان ثناؤهم مطابقا لأفعاله فيكون من أهل الجنة، فإن لم يكن كذلك فليس هو مرادا بالحديث. والثاني وهو الصحيح المختار أنه على عمومه وإطلاقه، وأن كل مسلم مات فلما الله تعالى الناس أو معظمهم الثناء عليه كان ذلك دليلا على أنهم أهل الجنة، سواء كانت أفعاله تقتضي ذلك أم لا. ولم تكن أفعاله تقتضيه فلا تحتم عليه العقوبة، بل هو في خطر المشيئة. فإذا ألهم الله عز وجل الناس الثناء عليه استدللنا بذلك على أنه سبحانه وتعالى قد شاء المغفرة له، وبهذا تظهر فائدة الثناء. He says this hadith has two meanings here. Two meanings. The scholars interpret it in two different ways because it seems to be problematic. The Prophet ﷺ and the companions were sitting down, they were at a place, and a janazah passed by them. And the people, the Sahaba, spoke good of the dead Muslim. They spoke good of him. He was righteous. He was a good man. He was honorable. He was a dignified person. He did this, he did that. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, wajabat. It's a must. It's affirmed for him. And then another janazah came, and they spoke ill of him. He was an evildoer. He was a sinner. He was a criminal. He was a wrongdoer. He was a bully. He was a tyrant. He was. And he says, wajabat. It's affirmed for him, or it's a must for him. And they asked him, Umar radiallahu anhu says, what's wajabat? And he went on to explain. Two meanings. Number one is that this praise was only done by the virtuous people. The people, it says Ahlul Fadl, the learned people, the virtuous people, i.e., people that would never say something unless it's what? True and accurate. This is what they knew about him, is that he was a righteous person. He seemed to be like this, so on and so forth, and that's what they said about him. So therefore, what they're saying about this deceased Muslim is nothing more but a what? A manifestation and a confirmation of what was the reality of how he lived. Everyone understand this? He says here, and if it wasn't the case, if it's inaccurate, then that's not what's meant by this hadith. That's the first interpretation. Everyone clear on this? That's the first interpretation. And interpretation number two is the view that Nawawi adopts, the view that he says is most correct. And he says what's meant by this is that this hadith is general. It's a general hadith, and it's not specific just to the virtuous people. Anyone. They praise the person like this, people, the inspiration, the divine inspiration. Alhamuhum, he gives them the ilham. He puts in their minds, in their hearts. He inspires them to speak good about this person. Then that's a proof that this person is from the people of paradise. That's a proof that he's what? From the people of paradise. Regardless whether his deeds were accurate or not. He says, and if the deeds were not accurate or appropriate to what they said about him, then it isn't something in which is a guarantee he's going to be punished. I.e., he was a righteous person. And the people, the Muslims, they spoke good of him, right? No, he says, his view is that Allah Azza wa Jal inspired them to say that about that person. He placed in their minds and in their hearts to speak good of that dead Muslim. So that means that he's from the people of Jannah, inshallah. And if he wasn't that righteous, and it wasn't 100% accurate, then it means that he won't be punished, specifically for sure. If he was a sinner and he deserved what? punishment. Rather, he being is under the will of Allah. He's under the will of Allah. If Allah wants to punish him, if Allah wants to have mercy upon him, etc. But it isn't something which the punishment is now going to happen. I'm clear on this. That's what Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says. He's beneath the Mashiach of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah inspires the people to praise this person, we use this as a dalil to see that Allah has willed forgiveness for him. And he hasn't willed punishment for him. Everyone understand this? Everybody clear on this or not? That Allah hasn't willed what? Punishment for him. And obviously if it's the opposite, they're saying shar about him, then that's just what? As if Nawawi says the opposite. That Allah has inspired them to say, and that's a proof this person is going to be punished. Allahu alam. Allahu alam. Al-Muhim, the first half is the interpretation, Nawawi says, just for the good. Everyone understand this? And if you honestly look at it, the first interpretation isn't that far off either. It's not that far off. And the concept of saying something good about a person and automatically means that they're from the people of Jannah or the people of Hellfire can become problematic. And the people of ilm and the people of virtue are not going to say nothing about someone unless they knew it to be what? True. And of course, that's done with what? Moderation. That's done with what? Moderation. Everyone understand this? It's done with moderation. Khairan inshallah. He says, and with this goes to show you the fa'idah of the hadith. What's meant by the thana, of the people praising him. And if that's not the case, then what big benefit is it? Because if he's righteous and he's going to Jannah already, what's the purpose of them saying anything about it? And what does the Messenger of Allah mean when he say wajibat? Everyone understand why he's picking the second interpretation? As if the first interpretation gives no meaning to the people's praise. Because what they're saying about him was what? Was accurate, and they were the virtuous people. No difference whether they praised him or not. Everyone understand this or not? Everyone understand this? Khairan inshallah. Moving forward. قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأنتم شهداء الله ولو كان لا ينفعه ذلك إلا أن تكون أعماله تقتضيه لم يكن للثناء فائدة وقد أثبت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم له فائدة فإن قيل كيف طيب, he says here so therefore if their praise was of no benefit and the deeds had to be accurate according to what they said about him, what benefit is it that then what? That they praise it. It has no fa'idah. And in this hadith, the Prophet clearly affirmed a what? An impact from their praise. He affirmed a what? An impact. That once they said something, he said, wajibat. Meaning that their words had a what? An effect. Everyone understand how he's supporting his view now? And this goes to show you using aql and using rationale and using the principles and understanding the hadith. And you have to be smart. You have to be intellectual. You have to have a great, vast source of information to have the fiqh of the sunnah. Everyone understand this? And it's not just you just memorize books and memorize names as ignorant people think. No, that's not true. You need a great deal of mental power to truly what? Have a grasp of the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam moving forward. He says, فإن قيل كيف ممكن بالثناء بالشر ما الحديث الصحيح في البخاري وغيره في النهي عن سب الأموات. Now, the problem that we brought up, what is the ruling on cursing the dead? How did the Prophet allow them to say bad or to speak bad or to say bad things about this dead Muslim? And the Prophet in Sahih Bukhari, now he says, has clearly prohibited what? Cursing the dead. سب الأموات. فالجواب أن النهي عن سب الأموات هو في غير المنافق وسائر الكفار وفي غير المتظاهر بفسق أو بدعة فأما هؤلاء فلا يحرم ذكرهم بشر للتحذير من طريقتهم ومن الاقتداء بأثارهم والتخلق بأخلاقهم وهذا الحديث محمول على أن الذي أثنوا عليه شرا كان مشهورا بنفاق أو نحوه مما ذكرنا. هذا هو الصواب في الجواب عنه وفي الجمع بينه وبين النهي عن السب وقد بسطت معناه بدلائله في كتاب الأذكار. He says, the answer is, then the prohibition of cursing the dead is for Muslims that were not kuffar, that were not munafiqs, that were not open sinners, and that were not open innovators. Just plain, open, public, disobedient people. Don't curse the dead, meaning someone who was a good Muslim who may have had some faults and some mistakes. This is Nawawi's answer. He says that's what's meant by that hadith of not cursing the dead, is do not curse the dead who was not someone who was public and open and outward with what? Sin and with mukhalafa. Public mukhalafa. Everyone understand this? This is Nawawi's answer. And obviously, alhamdulillah, that's the answer of Nawawi. Someone could argue with that the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say that. He says, don't curse the dead. And the benefit of, or the harm of cursing the dead, and the hadith clearly says, فَإِنَّهُمْ قَدْ أَفْضَوْا إِلَى مَا قَدَّمُوا. They have reached what they put forth. Meaning, they're done. Khalas. Nawawi rahimahullah, he says, and this, he says here, and that's for the people to beware of falling into what they fell into. To beware of their evil and their evil ways, and someone adopting their ways, their bad akhlaq. He says here, this does not apply to someone who's well known to be a munafiq. Waliyadhu billah. Can we say this? What's the asl of a Muslim passing by the Prophet that was a munafiq or a Muslim? Al-Muhim, he says, I've explained this in more detail in my book Al-Adhkar, Nawawi's book on supplications. His book on supplications. Khairan inshaAllah ta'ala. What time is he then? Khair inshaAllah, we'll stop here tonight. And hopefully we'll finish tomorrow. Wallahu ta'ala alam.